Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and I'm bringing you my top 10 Warframe list for 2018. Now, I want to start this video off with this is just my opinion, and I put this list together with, the thought process of what frames I use on a regular basis, which allows me to get missions done the fastest, because this is a grinding game at the end of the day, so it makes sense to have a Warframe that lets you get something done like as efficiently as possible. So some of the picks on this list people might not agree with if, they're an endgame player. Like, they like to do, like, endurance runs or things like that because, there's better frames out there like a Naros or Nidus or someone that aren't on this list but are still insanely good frames for scaling into late game and doing, like, really long, runs in defense or survival, which are insanely good, but I just don't have included on this list. But we will talk about them just a little bit as I mentioned some things that, like, certain frames can do that maybe a Naros or, Nidus or whatever frame I don't have included on this list could do maybe just a little bit better. So number 10, sorry, starting the list off backwards, that would have made a lot of sense. But at number 10, we actually have Vault. Now, Vault is one of those frames that I use whenever I am farming for prime frames. And the reason I use Vault to farm for prime frames is because it allows me to run through those missions like, let's say, capture, sabotage, rescue, really fast, and I can just, murder all the enemies that stand in my way with whatever melee weapon it is that I'm using. So I can be using a Zaw, I could be using the Atarax, I could be using any form of whip, as long as I have Maiming Strike on it, which is basically this here mod over here. It's very rare. It currently goes for around 600 platinum, can spike up to 800 platinum at a time depending on the time of year. But this here basically allows me to, basically one-hit any single enemy that kind of stands in my path, especially with the low-level enemies that spawn in your relic runs. So in your Lift, Meso, Neo, and Axii relics, the enemies aren't that high of a level. If you're playing Capture, Sabotage, Rescue, like, their levels aren't going to scale up. So using Vault to basically just sprint through those missions, get the objective done, collect your 10 reactant, and then get your prime part at the end, it just makes farming those prime frames a lot more efficient. So this is the build that I usually use on Vault. This is the speed build, and it just basically ups my attack speed and ups my sprint speed. So as you can see, I sprint a lot faster, and I also melee a lot faster. So I just keep on doing Shift and E, that's how my key bindings are set up, and I can just constantly spin the win and kill, like, every single enemy that kind of stands in my way. Now, Atarax isn't limited to being used with Vault. It just makes a lot of sense, at least in my opinion, having that high sprint speed, pair that with your speed ability. It basically just allows you to just run through all those different missions and get things done, okay? So another really cool use with Vault is, like, if you do want to take him in the late game, you can use this build right here, and this is basically your discharge build. It's a combination between having a lot of duration, having a lot of range, having a decent amount of efficiency, and you can basically, like, keep enemies in a stun loop. So if we were to go ahead and spawn in, like, a level 150 heavy gunner here, let's go ahead and spawn in one, make him level 150 like so. Gonna make ourselves invincible, exit this and simulate. If we go ahead and we jump over to him, you can see that we can just keep this guy in a stun loop. And what's going to happen, whenever you stun this guy, he's going to act like a conductor, and then any enemy that kind of walks towards him is going to also be electrocuted and held in that one place based off your duration. So we have 9 seconds left on that stun. So, Vault has two uses, at least in my opinion. Well, you can also use another third use, which is upping your crit damage by placing 5 electric shields down. This actually upgrades your damage, so you deal a lot more. It's pretty good. So let's just go ahead and kill this guy because it just makes a lot more sense. So there's that. And yeah, Vault is a pretty awesome frame. I recommend picking him up. And he's just going to make things easier to do. He's going to let you get things done a lot faster. Moving on to my number 9, we have Ember. And the reason I have Ember on here is because Ember allows you to be very lazy. Now, take into consideration, like, let's say, again, I was farming for, my let's say, Mirage Prime or Banshee Prime systems or whatever, and I had to do Axii relics. The enemies would be spawning in, I would say, maybe level 50 tops. Having an Ember would allow you to basically, like, kill every single enemy that kind of stands in your way, okay? Because Ember's World on Fire and her other two abilities combined, you can dish out a lot of damage in a very short period of time, and you don't even have to blink an eye at the enemies, because how it works is you press 4, and then it's going to be like based off your range. So let's just go ahead and show the build here actually, because it makes a lot of sense, and look at the stats. So we have a range of 21 meters on our World on Fire, and this is going to be like a thing that follows us around. It's going to be like an aura around your Ember, and anytime an enemy walks towards you or is within that 21.75 meter radius, they're going to be set on fire. So, you know, enemies are going to be burning, you're going to be dealing that fire damage, fire procs, blah, 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 and then, you know, they're just all going to die. You combine that with Fire Blast and Accelerant, which makes you deal more damage, so you're just, you know, basically dishing out a ton of DPS. So let's just go ahead and kill, simulate, go ahead, press 4, and then get this guy on fire, and then you can spam all your other abilities as well. Now, we're not dealing a lot of damage to him because he has armor, but you can see like the amount of times like fire procs are proccing on him. You can spam Accelerant to stun him, and then of course you're going to be dealing more damage, and they kind of just die. So imagine you're running around killing enemies, doing a lot of good stuff, and you know, enemies are just dying. So let's just go ahead and spawn in like a multitude of different corrupted enemies here as well, just to kind of throw in some variety. So we'll spawn in like 5 heavy gunners because they're like one of the hardest enemies, and then we can go for more corrupted enemies too. So let's see, that's Sentient, that's Orican, here we go. Let's get our corrupted crewmen, I guess. Spawn in 5 of those. Corrupted butchers, get those in. Corrupted moas, and then we'll go ahead and simulate. There we go. Get our energy. We have World on Fire turned on. We can jump in the middle, maybe spam Accelerant a few times, and you see all the enemies just kind of dying. So this is really good for Exterminate, really good for Sabotage, Capture, maybe even Defense, you know, different things like that. You just kind of let the enemies die. They just kind of die. Make sure to prioritize your heavier units like the heavy gunners, bombards, etc. And then Ember is an insanely good frame, very fast, very efficient to use, and just makes missions super easy, at least in my opinion. So that's why Ember is on my number 9. I almost said number I. Don't know why, but she doesn't scale too well, but you know, I still think she's a really good frame, and I definitely recommend picking her up if you're a newer player. Her build isn't too hard to put together either, so you know, it's fairly new player friendly, at least in my opinion. So you know, just go ahead and replace prime versions with regular versions of mods, and of course there's a few rare mods on there like Fleeing Expertise, Transient Fortitude, that are a little bit harder to come by because you have to go out of your way to do corrupted vault runs, but other than that, you know, she's still a very good frame, and I definitely recommend picking her up, especially if you want to be lazy in a few missions. So next up, we're moving on to my number 8. Number 8 is actually Rhino, or Rhino Prime, and the reason I throw Rhino on here is because he has like 3 main uses, and he's very good for newer players. Not only that, but he allows players to kind of like jump into different types of content because of like how many different diverse builds he has. It just opens up so many different doors for newer players to kind of jump in and like be all like, hey, I'm Rhino, I can be useful here because, you know, I have so much of a diverse kit, really. So to begin with, we have Rhino Charge, and this basically just allows us to dash forward, kind of similar to Excalibur Slash Dash. You can deal a decent amount of damage to this if you kind of just keep on chaining it together, but I mainly use it as like a mobility tool, so, you know, nothing too serious. Next up, we have probably Rhino's signature ability, in my opinion, because like a lot of people just kind of use Rhino for this one ability, but this is Iron Skin, and basically what this allows you to do, if I can spawn in an enemy, is it allows you to take like a buttload of damage, and then you'll get like invulnerability. Okay, so let's just go ahead, put on our Iron Skin, and you see up in the top right hand corner beside our health and armor, we had like a little counter up there, and based off the amount of damage we took would determine how strong our Iron Skin is, and we're invulnerable from all damage. So it's a way of scaling, so you have to take the damage, and then it makes you immune for the amount of damage that you took, if that makes any sense. And the more power strength you have on, then the more powerful that is. Same thing goes with Rhino's third ability, which is Rhino's Roar. And Rhino's Roar basically gives you a damage buff. So if we were to go ahead and spawn in 1 heavy gunner here, let's just get 1. There we go. We'll make him level 150 because, well, why not? We'll exit here. We'll go to Simulate. So we'll jump in. We will shoot him normally. So you see that we do about 874 damage. And then if we go ahead and we use Rhino's Roar, we're going to deal 1048. So, you know, it's just a way of increasing your damage, and the more power strength you have on, then the more damage bonus you're going to get. So you can see we get a 20% damage bonus because I'm not using like a power strength build right now. I'm using a range build for the sake of my 4th ability, which is the one I build around the most, which I will demonstrate to you guys now. It is basically Rhino's crowd control ability, which is what I use most in things like Law of Retribution, which is basically the raids of Warframe. So what you do is you jump in the middle of the enemies, you press 4, and now they're all in the air for a good 14-15 seconds. So makes every single enemy around you basically useless, and very good for defense, good for mobile defense, good for Law of Retribution, good for a variety of different stuff, and there's no downside to having like a Rhino Stump Rhino in your team because you can just keep the enemies in a constant loop of being crowd controlled. Not only that, but it does deal damage, so low level missions, if you're just playing on Earth or whatever, you can bring a Rhino Stump in and basically just kill everything with the press of a button. It's kind of insane, kind of cool. Don't want to build that around strength, but I will go ahead and show you the Rhino Stump build that I use the most, and yeah, so overextended, stretch, and cunning drift for your range, of course. Streamline for a little bit of efficiency. Constitution, prime continuity for your duration. Vitality and steel fiber on there to keep Rhino pretty tanky, along with prime flow or regular flow if you don't have it, for obviously your energy to keep, keep on casting your abilities. So yeah, we all need energy. So make sure to eat your fruit and stuff because that's how you get energy. So yeah, moving on. Next up, we have Chroma. Not a frame that I use a lot, but I can see why a lot of people use Chroma. And the reason for that being is because this Chroma looks very ugly. But the reason for that being is because he's kind of insanely broken at the minute, especially if you are into damaging yourself, if that makes any sense at all. It doesn't, which is why I'm here to explain it. So basically what happens is Chroma is a tanky frame. And to make yourself super tanky, you want to change your energy color to something that represents ice. So if you go ahead and you go in here, if we change your color to red, for example, you'd see that I get fire damage. If we change it to green, you'd see I get toxin damage. If we change it to blue, you would see I get electric damage. And if we change it to like white or black, you'd see I get ice damage right here. And ice damage is probably your best because it gives you the best effect on your Vex armor and your, is it Vex armor? Let's see, with the elemental ward and Vex armor. That's right. So basically what happens with this is you get like a massive damage reduction buff applied to yourself, and also you're going to reflect damage back at enemies while also like slowing them, chilling them, and then really cool stuff like that. So what we do is we turn on both our elemental ward and our Vex armor, like so. So that's your 3 and your 4, or if you're playing on PlayStation and you're using the touchpad, that is up, down. So that's down and left. And then what you want to do is you want to self-damage yourself somehow. So I need to turn off invincibility here, like so. And then do this. And then you'll see those percentages rise, okay? And that's basically us getting our damage buff and damage reduction buff from elemental ward and Vex armor. So let's just go ahead, and there we go, we're at max. So what happens here is we have that damage reduction buff, and we can just run in and basically one-shot every single enemy. Keep in mind, these guys are like level 150, and barely take any damage from them as well. So, you know, it's because of how Chroma's like damage multipliers work that make him so insane. The only downside is you have to like keep on constantly recasting and keep on taking the damage for Vex armor and elemental ward to kind of have like their biggest benefit, you know. So you have to have some way of healing yourself, which, I mean, if you're going up against level 150 enemies, you most likely will be. Otherwise, you know, this Chroma is just going to allow you to melt through every single enemy that stands in your way. And it's not just like, the damage buff isn't just limited to like your abilities on Chroma, but you can also use it with your melee weapon, you can use it with your primary, your secondary. Chroma is just an insane frame, and I definitely 110% recommend picking him up if you're into, you know, self-damaging yourself, taking damage, and then just kind of destroying the enemy. So it's kind of like, he's kind of like a tank and spank character, okay? So, you know, he's really good. But moving on. Next up, we have Banshee, and Banshee is kind of a weird pick, but Banshee allows me to level not only my weapons, but my friends' weapons, like, a lot more efficiently. So let's say, for example, I was using a weapon that I didn't really like that much, and I believe one that I didn't like that much was the Stubba, right? I hated leveling this weapon because I just felt like it did no damage, right? What you can do is you can bring Banshee in to make this weapon feel like it actually does damage. So what we're going to do is we're going to make all the enemies invincible, or not all the enemies, but myself invincible. We're going to spawn in one heavy gunner, like so. And well, actually not. We're not going to spawn in a heavy gunner. We'll spawn in butchers just so you can see the effect on multiple enemies running towards you. We'll spawn in all these butchers. They're level 150. Keep that in mind. Even though they're not the tankiest enemy in the game, it'll still kind of stand. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump in the middle and we're going to spam our second ability. This is sonar. Basically what this does, it marks all the enemies on the minimap, as you can see in the top left, and it marks weak points on the enemy. So you can keep on spamming this ability and mark multiple weak points, which will last for 38 seconds on the enemies. And then if you shoot these weak points, it's going to multiply your damage by a lot, okay? So you basically one-shot any enemy that has these little weak points on. Not to mention, once you shoot these weak points, it actually spreads to other body parts or to other enemies because you have an augment mod on. So she's a very insane frame. Very insane. And you just have to be shooting those purple points and then you're dealing like very massive damage numbers. So you can take a weapon which is trash and make it top tier just by using Banshee. And that's what I use whenever I'm leveling like a very underwhelming weapon. Even though Banshee is not the tankiest frame in the game, she is very good, especially whenever you have a team behind you, which is supporting the playstyle of the Banshee player. But other than that, we also have the Resonating Quake build, and basically what this does is it allows you to get down on all fours and basically keep enemies in a stun lock and kill them because it has like scaling damage because of an augment that we're using over here, which is called Resonating Quake, and it just makes it deal more damage, but it's going to take more energy, and it's also going to cover like a wider area in the map. So we go ahead, we spawn all these guys in, we jump to the middle, we press 4, and what's going to happen is you're going to see this little line, and it's going to keep on constantly getting bigger, and you're going to see the damage numbers gradually go up. Now, it's not going to kill these guys because they're like level 150, but if we were in, like, let's say Hydron and Sedna, where the enemies are like level 40 starting off, going up to level 50, those guys would die rather quick because, you know, your damage is constantly scaling up because of this augment. Of course, it's taking more and more energy, so you want to have a way to sort of make sure that you have a decent amount of energy, like, you know, just energy coming back to you like a Trinity. But Banshee is a very powerful frame whenever it comes to defense, whenever it comes to just leveling weapons, making underwhelming weapons better, or even just like stun locking enemies like so, because you can press silence and now they're stunned, and, you know, you just go in and kill them and do what you have to do with them. So very powerful frame, and she's not used that much, so I mean, pick her up and make a difference in a squad. That's what I would recommend doing. So we're gonna go ahead, kill the enemies again, and now you see that my little map is a little bit cluttered, but that's besides the point. We're moving on to my number 5 spot now. My number 5 spot is Nova. Now, Nova is one of those frames that you either love her or you hate her, and there's different uses for her. So my main use for it is to help newer players out and to make missions super easy, because what you can do, jump in the middle of the map, press 4, and as this little wave passes the enemies, they're going to be slowed by 75%, and they're going to take a lot more damage. So, you know, and then once you kill them, they also explode. So Nova makes most content in this game insanely easy, and she also makes it that you can do it relatively fast with the introduction of her wormhole ability, which basically just allows you to teleport around the map just by pressing free and then jumping through the little portal, which is cool. And then we also have our antimatter drop ability and our first ability, Neutron Star, or Null Star, sorry. Null Star will give you damage reduction based on the amount of balls you have. So you can see down the bottom right-hand corner there, I have 18 balls. And then Antimatter Drop will multiply damage that you shoot into a ball, which you're going to shoot into your hand and turn it into radiation damage. So what we do is we're going to go ahead and get a Tigris Prime, just so I can demonstrate this as fast as possible. Let's see. Here we go. Tigris, like so. Tigris. Okay. Bring it out. And now we go near the enemies. We shoot our 2. We shoot it like that. And now you aim it towards the ground, and all the enemies explode. And they're dead. You know? One hitting. It's an insane ability. I recommend picking it up. Nova just makes content in this game insanely easy. And keep in mind, like I said, this video is all about getting content done as fast as possible. And kind of like, you know, just getting things done. Like, you want to one-shot that raptor boss? Here, use Nova's antimatter drop. He's dead. He's dusted. It's him. He's over. He's gone. But other than that, we're going to move on to our number 4, and this is Loki. Now, people are going to disagree with Loki. I love Loki. I think Loki's great. He's got the highest base sprint speed in the game. He can go invisible for about 30-odd seconds. He can completely disarm every single enemy that's in your lobby. So let's go ahead and spawn in heavy gunners, for example, like so. Get 20 of them. Easy. Simulate. Jump down here, if we could jump. We press 4, and now all those enemies are useless. Of course, they have a lot of armor, but they can't really shoot, and you can knock them all over with your Tigger's Prime that has blast damage and 100% status, and kind of just murder them. So, yeah, not to mention you can also press 4 again, make all the enemies useless because they kind of stagger back, and you can just keep on spamming this. It also deals damage, but not worth building it for damage. Of course, it takes a decent amount of energy, but this is a game where you can regen your energy by hopping out into your little midget man and kind of just standing in this little bubble, get your energy back again, and you can constantly do that as much as you want. Not to mention invisibility, and you can also distract enemies with your decoy ability, which is good for defense as well, even though whenever the enemies start to get higher level, they will one-shot that decoy, like that guy literally just did. So yeah, there you go. You can also augment Loki to make him even stronger, make enemies fight one another when they're disarmed. So we go here, we take Irradiate and Disarm, and we go ahead and we make them fight one another. So watch, they're going to beat one another with sticks now. Pretty kinky, right? So that's that. Whenever it comes to being invisible, Loki is great, but Octavia is better. Moving on to our number 3 spot. Octavia over here, just an insane frame. Every single buff that is imaginable in this game that you could possibly ever have, Octavia can give you. She gives you crowd control, she gives you damage, she gives you going invisible. Insane frame. Like, if you know how to play her right, it's crazy. So basically what happens is you apply like a manticore, like a song, any song at all, and then you basically just have to move to the beat or shoot to the beat of the song, and then everything's going to die. So her abilities actually work like a little dance. So you press 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they all work in conjunction with one another. All the enemies are crowd controlled. They're getting constant damage applied to them. You have a multitude of buffs up in the top right hand corner there, and you can stay like almost perma invis as long as your abilities are up. So you want to build Octavia for, you know, duration, you want to build her for power strength, you want to build her for efficiency, and you just want to keep all your abilities up as much as possible. And the damage is going to scale up, enemies are going to die, you're going to be able to shoot them, and she's an insane frame. It just makes life so much easier having an Octavia in your squad. That's another thing with this video as well. Like, all of these frames that I'm like listing to you guys, they're frames that whenever I look at them, I'm like, yo, you know, these frames are definitely frames that I would want to see in my squad, like at all times, more or less. Like, I'd never have a problem with another player playing one of these frames, I guess. So, as long as they're playing them right. So, you've seen that we basically just mopped up those level 150 guys, which was insane. But we're going to move on now to my second pick, and this is actually Mesa. Now, Mesa compared to Octavia, maybe not, you know, Octavia might be better, you could argue. Like, with these top 3 frames, you could really argue the positioning of them. It's just down to how much I use them, really. But Mesa is a personal favorite because of how lazy you can be and how effective she is while being super lazy, if that makes any sense. So, we're going to go ahead and throw on a crit pistol. So, any secondary that you can build for crit would be ideal to use on Mesa, because her 4th ability will take from the mods that you have on your pistol, and it's more ideal to build the 4th ability for crit, and then just building the frame in general for duration, a little bit of power strength. So we have Intensify on here, and this is going to give us 90% damage reduction on our 3rd ability, as well as a tiny buff on our Shooting Gallery ability, which is our 2nd ability. We also have Stretch on here for a little bit of crowd control on our 2nd ability, and then the rest is just thrown into power duration, power efficiency, etc. So Streamline for efficiency, Stretch for a little bit of range on our 2nd ability, so they get crowd controlled. Now Minded on here for the duration, Prime Continuity for duration, Constitution for duration, Cunning Drift for a little bit more range, Vitality for health, and Prime Flow. So notice how I don't have a buttload of strength on here, because it's more beneficial to build for the 4th ability while using crit. So we want to change Pistol Pestilence for what's it called, our Pathogen rounds, and then our Jolt for Convulsion, and then take off Hydraulic Crosshairs, and then we would throw on something like Primed Heated Charge or regular Heated Charge. So just make sure that you have a crit build on, and then you're going to be able to melt enemies. So let's spawn in our level 150 Heavy Gunners here, Simulate, and what we're going to do is we're going to jump in, we're going to crowd control them, we're going to make sure that we have damage reduction. So I'm actually going to turn off invincibility here as well. So let me kill all the enemies, go to settings, turn off invincibility. We're going to simulate all of them. We're going to jump in. We're going to have our 2 up. We're going to have our 3 up. And we're going to sit here. We're going to kill all of these enemies. just by looking at them. Okay? They're all crowd controlled. Can't really shoot us. Well, they can shoot us, but, you know, they're having difficulty doing so because their guns are jammed. And we're killing them. So it's just kind of the enemies behind us that are, you know, giving us hassle here. You just want to shoot all of them. Like so. And they're pretty much all dead. Mesa is absolutely insane. She scales insanely well, which is why I'm showing off versus level 150s. And just, you know, playing her in the defense, you can literally stand up on a post like this and kill everything that's around you. So imagine that ability versus lower level enemies, and that's what you're going to be using to get free stuff efficiently in this game. And yeah, I don't really have to say anything more about Mesa. That just kind of sums up the fact that she's insane. Last but not least, we have Equinox. Equinox is one of my favorite frames, and that isn't going to show through in this video because there's so much you could talk about whenever it comes to Equinox that I would have to make a video completely on its own for Equinox, which will be happening hopefully this month. So again, so many different builds, but the one I want to focus on today is showing you how you can kill like a multitude of enemies in a very short period of time. Of course, they're going to be lower level enemies, and there is better builds for the build that I'm about to show you, such as using energy conversion and stuff like that. But just like the general, you know, concept behind it is you spawn in all the enemies that you want to kill. So let's go ahead and spawn in, we'll spawn in Lancers just so you can see the effect. So let's get the Corrupted Lancers, we'll get 20 of them, and we'll make them about level 50, because that's the type of enemies that are going to be in like your void runs and stuff like that. So you come over here, you turn on your 3, you turn on your 4, you spam your 2 on the enemies a little bit if you have the time to, you jump towards them, and you start dealing damage. So you start killing them with your Adorax, you start killing them with your Tigris or whatever, and you see in the top right hand corner there, we actually start to store up damage. But okay, that was pathetic because I just fell off the map, so let's just go ahead and get that started again. So we're going to kill the enemies, we're going to simulate, press our 3, press our 4, we're going to jump over at them, we're going to kill a bunch of them, like so. Okay, and you see that we have a bunch of damage stored up in the top right hand corner there. So what's going to happen is whenever we come towards this last group of enemies, you see how they're all bleeding because they're in the effect, or the effect of my aura. We press 4 and all the damage that we had stored up gets applied to them. So you see how most of their health just kind of disappeared, and we can kind of just finish them off. So imagine having this turned on at the beginning of a mission, running through it, storing up a decent amount of damage, like 10,000 damage, jumping into your room, and then letting all of that damage out again by repressing your 4. The entirety of like all the enemies in the room would be dead. So Equinox just makes like running through exterminate missions, capture missions, heck, even survival missions if like the enemies are low enough level at base and you have like enough power strength on. She just makes everything a joke. Not to mention, you can also build this frame around being stealthy, like putting enemies to sleep. You can, you know, build her around slowing enemies down. There's just so much you can do with Equinox. It makes the game truly and like just super easy. Now, what I want to like advertise at the end of this video is the fact that all the frames that I just showed you, I will be making videos called Everything You Need to Know About on all of the frames. Now, not just the top 10 that I showed you, but in this coming month in January, we're going to be posting like literally nothing but our Everything You Need to Know About videos after I get the top 10 videos done. So we're going to have everything you need to know about all the frames, and then whenever the IPS 2.5 changes comes around, then we'll take a look at the weapons, because we don't know how those IPS changes are going to affect most of the weapons in the game. But if you stuck around to the end of this video, thank you. Some honorable mentions would be a Naros, because he's just insane. You can press 1 and like one-shot any enemy in the game. Trinity for being able to 100% heal like your entire squad. Nidus for that insane, like, you know, scaling damage. There's so many different frames in this game, so many different ways to play them. You know, even Frost could have made it on this list as well. He's insane for defense, Haro for his crit, you know, Hydroid for farming. There's so much different stuff in this game, and it's really down to the player. This is just my own personal list. This is just my opinion. These are frames that I use on a regular basis on my live stream over at twitch.tv/iFlynn. I stream 5 days a week, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays from 12 p.m. up until 5 p.m. GMT. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Like, there's nothing more I can say other than all these frames that are on this list will make your life super easy in Warframe, implying you build them right. And with those everything you need to know about videos, I will be showing multiple different builds in those videos that will hopefully help you guys out. So look forward to that. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead, hit that like button below. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.